So if you have a whole list of questions about The Witcher 4.
I have 0 questions about The Witcher 4. So yes, today we are definitely going to have a legend from The Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt team. He has many other big hits as well. I wanted to give you very quickly, let you know that you are here. This is the Professor Game Podcast. This is a place where we interview legends like the one that we're going to have today and other practitioners to get us inspired into how to use game strategies, game design, ideas, and playfulness so that we can superpower retention and engagement. I'm Rob Alvarez. I teach at IE Business School, EBS, EFMD, and many other places around the world. And if you think you would benefit from 3 gamification hacks to increase your income from your community, then click on the link below because we have a freebie just for you. Engagers, so welcome back to another episode of the Professor Game Podcast. We have a very exciting guest today. All of our guests are definitely exciting, but for me personally, I've played some of the incredible games that Jakub has worked on. So we have Jakub Szamalek. Is that kind of decent, Jakub?
We say Szamalek.
Szamalek.
But that was a brave attempt.
So Jakub Szamalek is an award-winning narrative designer and writer, best known for his work on The Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt, and Cyberpunk 2077. He has played a key role in shaping some of the most emotionally immersive and critically acclaimed storylines in modern gaming, blending deep lore, player-driven choices, and unforgettable characters. And beyond playing games, Jakub is also a novelist and a passionate storyteller who understands how narrative can hook people and keeps them coming back. Today, we'll explore what makes narrative stories so powerful and what we can learn from games that go beyond The Witcher, of course, but including The Witcher to design better, more engaging experiences in other fields. Jakub, welcome. We need to know still, are you prepared to engage?
Yeah. Go ahead. Sure. So
let's do this. Let's go. And we have a different episode also in the sense that we have a bit of a live audience. We're testing how this works today with Luke. So there might be questions coming in from those who are present. Now, let's actually get started with, the first few things that we had in mind. So we'll be diving, of course, into how storytelling can inspire powerful engagement, even, of course, definitely within games, but even outside of games, if there's anything you can think of. So, of course, being part of The Witcher, being such a popular story, so complete with so many things. I have a question from one of our internal groups, who is Roger. And Roger's asking, how do you decide how much real world myth and folklore versus, original lore to infuse in a story? Like, of course, The Witcher is the first thing that comes to mind. Do you have any insights that you can share with us on that sort of process?
Well, I would say, maybe I'll start with saying this. I'm trained as an archaeologist and ancient historian. So I'm aware that we've been telling stories to one another for quite some time. It's a very human thing, and there's a very rich collection of stories, legends, beliefs that we can explore, seeking for inspiration, for a different perspective, because we're products of our own times and cultures. But when we look back, when we look beyond our kind of immediate experiences, we can come up some really interesting stuff. So whenever I'm working on a project, whatever the project is, I try to branch out and read things that are related to what I'm planning to write about that could serve as inspiration. And I would say the point is to become inspired and not to copy, because you can also do the telling of a story, and as long as the IP rights expired, you're good. I don't think anyone will come after you if you decide to do a retelling of the Epic of Gilgamesh. But I'm always more interested in identifying some interesting details or finding some elements that would fit in a different story and kind of mixing and matching. The Witcher was a little bit different because it was like the source material, Anti-Sapkowski's Popsy, and already established this method whereby you take a well-known story and then there's a twist at the end. So that's something that and we supposed to did a lot and did very, very well. And that's something that I also did when I worked on games set in that universe. So there was a lot of Grimm Brothers tales that I read looking for some other stories that could serve as a kind of starting point when looking for ideas for new quests. Most of them are very disturbing and really badly. That's probably all that.
There's so many references, as you were saying, with small twists to the story or huge twists. So I mean, it's absolutely amazing. Luke is asking if you did work on the magic system. I'm not sure.
No, because I'm a video game writer, so I mostly focus on the narrative. That being said, like video game writers write a lot of different things depending on where we are in the project. Then we usually start, with the big picture. So what is the world? What is the story? Who are the characters? And then you go narrower and narrower. So from this broad, nebulous vision, you go into defining the main story, and then you start writing quests, and then you start writing dialogues. But then at the end of the process, we start writing tooltips and item links. So I guess I worked on gameplay systems and to the extent of rewriting debug descriptions into final versions of them. But no, I don't really dabble in gameplay. That's not my forte.
Is there like diving deeper into what we just were talking about, in immersive games? Is there something that you feel, or a group of things that you think makes a story stick, or maybe make the world feel more alive? Or when I ask you this, what comes to your mind?
Well, I would say that story states leverage as it aroused emotions. So like you remember great books, movies, you remember horrible books and movies, and there are some cult classics which are remembered and watched and rewatched on the account of them being extremely bad. But I think as long as it evokes something in you, that's a good starting point. And I think particularly in games, the element of choice is really important. It's really unique because as much as I'm invested in a given character's journey when I'm reading a book or watching a movie, I understand that my role is fully passive. All I do is I watch the movie, I read the book, and no matter what I do, the story will unfold exactly how its creators intended it to. Whereas in a video game, you are in a position where you have agency over how the story unfolds. And it's cool on a number of different layers, but what I enjoy as a story writer is that it creates this tension. You're wondering, what is the correct thing to do? What should I decide here? And when the choice is well crafted, it's something that you debate with yourself. It's something that you wonder about. And I think it touches something that's, very deeply human. I think we all crave having choice, having agency in our life, but it can be terrifying. It can be very stress-inducing to have choice, to realize that suddenly you're at a crossroads, and depending on whether you go left or right, your life can take widely different turns. Whether you study this or that, or whether you quit your job or keep at it, whether you kneel down to propose or break up, right? These are all very meaningful, powerful moments. And perhaps likely they don't come that often in our daily life, right? We have our routines, we have our habits. That's like when I'm watching a story in a video game, I can confuse it with a lot of these really powerful, meaningful choices and moments that kind of draw you in, make you feel alive and make you forget that this is just a story. This is just an experience that somebody created for you. And I think this is what's true with games. And that's what excites me as a creator. I enjoy working in linear reality. I occasionally put out a book and I dabble in movies, and that's wonderful too. And each of these media, they have their own quirks and interesting kind of idiosyncrasies. But I think the element of choice, that's and exploiting well, that's what makes video games sort of stand out.
And talking about choice and specifically meaningful choice, I know Luke was very curious as well. He asked this question before we got on, and literally he wrote, like, how do you structure such a complex narrative and make the decisions still feel meaningful? And things like, do you map the endings first and then go backwards and the other way? Like, how do you even go about these massive? Because if you think about a huge, like if you think about small games, that you have a few branches, but the bigger the game gets, it's not that it twice as big, it's twice as complex. No, it's tens of thousands of times more complicated. How do you structure that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I would love to provide more clear, crisp answer. This one, how we sometimes see these ads or headlines in tabloid press, dentists hate these 5 things people do, or I don't know, doctors resented when you did this because they're relevant. So I'd love to give you this one thing that's be not too propelling towards making your own bad storylines. But the truth is, it's a super messy process, and of course, whatever we do, and irrespective of the project I'm on, if it has a tragic story, we do our best to map it out and control and on top of what's going on. But it always gets messy because there's a lot of variables. There's a lot of people. We're all co-creating it. People have different ideas, and having everyone on the same page and report equal access to information. So it's always a challenge.
And you touch upon something interesting there, because it's not just your choices, because you could even argue no, I have it all in my head and I just structure it, which is not really often true, but you also involve other people. So how do you complicating that? How does it get when there's collaboration involved as well?
Well, you have to talk to people, and you have to argue with them, and you have to state your ambitions and defend your goals. I think it really helps if you work on a game that has a lot of ambition, because sadly, a lot of games, for me personally, there's a lot of games that just don't care about the story, or the story is just a pretext to send you off on an event, and that's cool. But the games I work on, they tend to to justify my existence inside the project. They tend to help surround that, so everyone understands it's important to tell the story well. So you talk, and there are emails and there's documentation, but the documentation has a lasting habit of going out of date the moment you stop writing. It's the moment you put the finishing touches is already out of date. Gives you a general idea of what we're trying to do. So you talk, document, but that comes to deciding how to do it, and how to decide which elements can have they really do carry meaningful consequences and which don't, because there's a lot of fluff, whatever game they're making, whatever game they're playing. There's a good chance that a lot of the choices there are just fluff. So let's keep that. You have choices that goes A and B, and then they go back to the same place.
The same place.
Right? That's life. I mean, sometimes when you make decisions and it feels like no matter what we do, and the cycles don't go our way, and sometimes little things can have far-reaching consequences. And I think humans are also attuned to randomness and unpredictability, and I think that's what's makes us both anxious and excited. So this is why people love gambling. or why they're prone to do gambling, why we're stuck scrolling on social media because we are curious like what this next box will contain. Like, what you're just hoping something interesting or something boring. And I think that's my understanding. There's a lot of research showing how these random, unforeseeable things pique our interest and keep us engaged. So I would say that when I'm working on a particular quest or storyline, I'm okay with some choices that are completely fluff as long as they're interesting in the moment as you're kind of deciding what to do. So if they're putting you in a situation where you're like, oh, what should I do? Like, even if the story doesn't present you with consequences further down the road, it's still valuable and that it engages you and it has you on the edge of this because you don't know, like, you still have consequences and maybe more. And also, humans are absolutely amazing at anthropomorphizing shit all around them. Like, look at a clown and it's like, oh, it's a dog. And you give names to your cars and you pat them on the hooves after a long drive, right? Yeah, it's very easy for us to see human elements where there aren't any. So, like, when you're playing a game and there's an NPC model and it looks like a human and talks like a human, you're gonna assume it's a human, like on some level, like subconsciously, you're like, oh my, that's a person, and you don't want to offend them. You don't want to be rude to people. You don't want to disappoint them. So I can kind of go to like a, no.
Do you use any tools to keep track of this, or again, you were mentioning conversations and emails?
Yeah,
is there you said documentation, but I'm not sure if that's a centralized thing. Use a flowchart. Like I have no idea where that goes.
We use flowcharts, but like honestly, I think this is all secondary to intuition. And like you have to know like what is your budget and your time and your capability as a team. So like you're working on a project and you know you have to start with a budget and you start with a timeline and that will tell you how much you can afford. Like, so for example, right now we have one concept artist, so he or she can draw 20 final boards. So that's how much you can make. We have 20 choices that feel meaningful enough to merit a final board. So then you go for the game, like, oh, well, we have 18, but maybe we could add 2 more there. Or maybe you're like, oh, that concept art is taking way too long drawing these boards. You have to cut down on because like you got a ton. So I'd say when I'm working on that, say I'm given a quest to write, I will first kind of read through the design and I want to see a few places where you have these choices, where you have choices that at least feel meaningful or feel promising as something that might merit further exploration. And then I think about other quests, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe if you did this here, it got there. And then sometimes the choices can have like far-reaching consequences. So, for example, you cut off a particular quest line, or a given quest has a completely different playthrough depending on the choice of this. And sometimes there's really minor things, like someone will notice something and acknowledge a particular attribute step. And people love it. They go, that's crazy. For like one liners that emphasis job here and there. It's lovely because it allows me to, kind of introduce that in the art very cheaply. And again, I think that element of unpredictability, never know whether what saying you think that this NPC is just a flash choice or will kind of bite you in your hours later in the game. That's what makes it interesting.
When people are designing these branching paths or learning or user journeys, is there any quick tip that you would have like to reduce? Because avoid completely is not going to be possible, but that overwhelm of it's just so much.
Yeah. Well, I would say you have to be smart about it and understand that you have finite resources. And like I work on AAA games, so they tend to like I'm now working on a game called The Blood of Dawnwalker with Shadow Wolves. It's a company I co-founded a few years back. And, you know, you're working on AAA budget and you have a big team and And yes, I have to content with the fact that I can't do everything. And but there's there are deadlines, there are limits to what's achievable. And these limits will be different for different people. But I think the worst thing you can do is have you and your buddy sit down to design a massive or multiplayer online RPG game, and then sit down to make it and spend a year making one quest that has 20 non-linearities and different endings and so on. Because chances are you're never going to finish that. And so I think picking your battles and being wise about your choices is one thing. And then I think grabbing low-hanging fruit. So sometimes you see something, you play one quest and do anything about the other quest where you can do some sort of a cross reference, and it's a matter of a few lines or like an additional beat here and there, and you can expand the world without investing too much of the resources. And again, I'm sorry that I don't give you the golden bullets to do this. But if I were to give you one wise piece of advice, I would say, that using iteration to your advantage is really important, because I've never worked on a game where we like design something on paper and put it together and just work. And what happens is you design something on paper and it sounds amazing, and then you start playing it and you're like, oh no, actually now that I see it in the game, so like giving yourself time to design your game, implement first class and play it, and then think how it could be improved, how like this beat of the game can interconnect with the other beats of the game, do that, play again, see if that works out, if that can be improved. And the more you iterate, the more opportunity you have to flesh this all out. So again, to me personally, it comes to your intuition and experience, and giving yourself time to experiment.
Absolutely. Makes sense. So I know Luke is curious about AI, but before diving into potential impact of AI, I wanted to ask you a question, like, for example, in The Witcher 3, and I know in other games as well, but people keep coming back, not just for the gameplay, which, yes, of course I do, but also for the emotional experience. Like, you're in the game and you're feeling all these things. Are there any design elements that you would think that drive that kind of retention, that kind of, I keep coming back for something like this?
Well, I would say we're making sure with each and every element of your game is good enough for people to want more. Because if you're playing a quest and it ends and you're like, oh man, that was good, I want to play more of it, then you will. But if you fill your world with filler content, and playing the game with it, and then there's something found and you want to play some more, and then someone tells you to drink 100 wolf's hides or 20 I don't know, playing stars or whatever, and then you're bored while playing a game, that's when you'll put it away. So I'm very keen on making sure like the games I work on, there's that everything is handcrafted, or at least that everything like is weighed against that standard. Because you're playing any you have to go that you will be exposed to quality content that it consciously trying to evoke emotions. So like when I'm assessing quest pitches, I'm looking for just that, for a story that makes me feel something. And if it doesn't, then it might provide a great pretext to go on a dungeon crawl. But if it's not resonating with me on that emotional level, then it's not a good story, and then we'll ditch it. So I think that's again that's my recipe.
That would be the recipe, and you see like this could be something applicable outside of games, so in apps, online experiences, communities. Is that something that you think would be would be useful.
Sure. I mean, humans are attuned to stories. Like we care about stories much more than we do about statistics, sadly. There's kind of sometimes I wish we were more like, Vulcans from Star Trek and we could just communicate through Excel spreadsheets because sometimes our predilection for storytelling makes us prone to believing bullshit. And I think there's plenty of evidence for that going around right now, like without getting too specific. But if you want to sell something, you want to sell an idea, if you want someone to really know what happened next, and tell them the story. And that's, you can tell that story in a video game, but also you can tell that story as a part of your political campaign or advertising campaign or whatever it is that you're trying to peddle. But if you work it into the story, then people will care in a way they don't care about statistics or, hard truths that come without the nice part which that storytelling offers.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it gives plenty of food for thought for many other things. And I mentioned AI before, but I wanted to make sure we got here because, AI sometimes completely changes the conversation. And Luke is asking and about specifically how can AI change story-driven games where, NPCs can answer intelligently, become perhaps a part of the world. I get where it gets there and definitely where that can expand even outside of games. Is this something you've experimented with that you've even thought about, or I don't know, what are your take? What's your take on AI?
Well, it's something I'm thinking about a lot. I actually started playing with ChatGPT from the moment the first iterations came out, so 1.0 and then 2.0, when it was way clunkier than it is now, and it was already then were very impressive and very upsetting. And different people get settled for different reasons. I'm not worried about robots taking over the world like they shouldn't, but it's not what came to mind. I went more along the lines of thinking, how are we different from algorithms? Because maybe we only are glorified versions of ChatGPT with some, to go on top. So I had existential crisis when taking with it. But when it comes to practical adaptations, it's absolutely possible, and it's real problem right now. But it's not what I'm interested in personally. Because sure, you can populate the world with chatbots, but they will bore you to death. Or you'll have these random laws that you can already have with chatbots in your browser window. What I'm trying to say is that stories are equally about what you say and about what you don't say. So stories are kind of condensed. You boil it down to essentials. It's a story about the beats, the cartoons, the moments. So as you're writing, you're constantly editing, cutting out what's not essential, and leaving the good stuff. And I don't think these will, at least now, the AI I see and kind of sometimes play with. I don't see it being very good at that. So sure, I could probably make a game right now where you have NPCs that can talk for hours, but might just as well go out and talk to the people at the bus stop, and chances are you will find some interested people and have a cool conversation. But would that be a great game experience? Probably not. So that's one thing that that makes me skeptical about it. And then secondly, there's a whole list of ethical concerns, because undoubtedly AI will temporarily tackle the market from real humans in terms of the need for writing, and like I said, a lot of games don't treat story as their selling point. It's just there to fill blank space, and I'm sure that can be done with an algorithm, and that will probably happen whether I like it to or not. Should I encourage that and accelerate that process myself. I don't necessarily feel the inclination to do so. So I'm currently happy to do things as I've learned how to do that and tell my stories and craft them myself. But I'm sure there's room for experimentation. Am I personally thrilled and excited that we are at a time where we create algorithms that can supplant humans in their creative pursuits, which historically is what gave us most joy and purpose? No. But I am also deeply aware that my influence over the course of events here is right.
Each and every one of ours is to a great extent falls into that. So you've talked about the importance of this, and I couldn't agree more about the importance of narratives and storytelling in so many places. Have you seen, or maybe from your experience, that there are any storytelling techniques that could apply well outside of games, things like education, marketing, loyalty programs? I don't know, any other place where you've seen these strategies being used very well? You mentioned politics, right? Not to get into any specifics. Is there any other place where you've seen these being particularly?
There are always attempts to gamify things. I like create educational games. They're games that will expose people to certain ideas. I think the moment your goal isn't to, I don't know, either to entertain or to pour your soul out and share something deeply personal and somewhat true to you, there's going to be fake, and then people will feel that it's fake. So I'm grateful that I can apply my playing in a way that feels real to me. And so the space where you tell stories as means to an end, rather than as an end in itself, isn't necessarily like that.
Interesting. So the whole idea, the whole concept of using these strategies somewhere else outside of the game or actual stories is yeah. No, like I get what you mean. I don't know if I agree with all of it, but I understand what you're saying. Like, it doesn't feel authentic.
Yeah, I'm saying I guess that I am in the privileged selected position, and that I get to tell the stories I want to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Either because I find them interesting, or they explore something that feels important to me, or something that I want to share, or something that I'm processing myself. And ideally, even though people who play online games will likely never meet me and they don't even know my name most of the time, we share something. There's a connection. Like I'm saying, through my art, through my writing, listen, I think this is important. What do you think? Like, this is where I stand, but what
absolutely,
what is your position?
But that's
I think you do it, and other people they might want to use writing techniques to sell cars or promote political candidates, and that's cool too. I'm just glad it's not something I do.
Totally, no, but even from what you were saying, you're portraying a message, right? When you're telling these stories, from what you're describing, you're portraying a message that goes into the artistic arena, in the sense that you're expressing something with your art. And I agree, video games are a massive piece of art most of the time. And that is something that you're going. It's going beyond the entertainment, because you also mentioned, like, regrettably, many video games and games in general are just sort of putting aside what the story is, and they're just there for the entertainment. When you put in the story, there's something that goes beyond just the entertainment, which it could be delivering. Like, you could, let's take The Witcher, right? You could be having a lot of the gameplay, And so I wouldn't think it's such a great game as it is, of course, but you could still have a lot of entertainment out of a gameplay like that one. But the story makes it different, right? And it gives you something more. So you could even argue that there you're doing something that goes a little bit beyond that fun entertainment element. But yeah, I completely get where you come from, and that you're happy that you get to be exactly in the place you want to be, which is just a great situation to be in. I totally agree. Is there, if you were to say there's a favorite character that you've written or participated significantly in writing, would you say there's one character like that, and why would it be that character?
Well, out of the games that have been released, because I'm working on one other game right now, which I'm very fond of, and it's one that's about to come out too. But obviously these things are yet to be seen by the wider world. But choosing from what I've done in the past, I would say leave the protagonist of Thronebreaker, The Witcher Tales. It's one of the smaller games I worked on. It's a spin-off set in the Witcher universe, and the protagonist is this badass middle-aged lady who wants her throne back. And I really enjoyed writing her, and I'm really happy with how she came together. Also because I don't think there's a lot of characters like her, so I felt like there's room for doing things my way and kind of experimenting. But also, like she was a nice contrast to Geralt. Like Geralt now is this Ronin-like character, someone who travels the world and tries to stay away from its affairs, and then inevitably getting drawn into them. But like his essence was always doesn't concern the pain for the monster, and I'll be behind with. Whereas me was, the ruler. So people would come to her and say, this happened, and you have to do something about it. You have to decide this or that. Or like, there's a crisis, and we all depend on you. And it felt interesting to kind of explore that space and put the player in a position of responsibility like that. And we put so much power in their hands. So that was fun.
That's very cool. Definitely. Do you have any piece of advice for people who want to be a storyteller?
Well, yeah.
People who are aspiring to be storytellers like you.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for them?
Sure. My advice would be read a lot and write a lot. Because you can't become a good writer without reading first. And I think, I don't know. If you want to be a video game writer, then you better play video games. And if you want to be a screenwriter, you better watch movies. But that's all in all. Make sure you spend some time on getting yourself exposed to what's out there, what's been done, and then write and write and write, and write stuff that's good. And I know it's easy to say, but like when I open the recruitment processes for writers and teams, I get a lot of applications, and like my one advice is send me a writing sample that hooks me from the first sentence, and then just keeps engaged. So like if you need 2 pages to set the stage, chances are I will never get to page 2. So learn to write in a way, especially like in today's landscape, which is so saturated, noisy, and busy, and we are all just blinking, and we have these after images from all the streaming content and games and outbreaks and whatnot. Like you really have to have a strong voice to be heard in this landscape. So like make sure that whenever you write, has that power to make me stop, to make me forget about like all the other things fighting for my attention, and just follow your start. And if you can do that, then chances are you'll do well.
Fantastic advice. Thank you very much, Jakub, for all the advice. Szamalek is what you said, right?
Yes.
Szamalek.
Yes, there we go.
Thank you very much for all that advice, all your experience. Is there any place you would like us to follow you? Where can we find out more about what your work?
No, because I hate social media. So no, just play my games, and we'll be fine. So my next big game is The Blood of Dawnwalker. So maybe follow that. And the other game that I recently dabbled my fingers in is called Fluff. And there will be more out about it soon. So have that on your radar. Oh, and my one of my books coming out in English this year.
Oh, nice.
So Inner Space. So there we go.
Inner Space.
Yes.
Good stuff. Good places to find you for sure. Jakub, is there anything else that we didn't ask you that maybe we should have asked you about that is not in the interview?
No, I think that was quite comprehensive. I feel like shared my 3 points. So we're good.
Sounds great, Jakub. Thank you once again very much for being here, for taking time. I know we had a few tries before getting till today, but it's fantastic, phenomenal to have you here.
Thank you.
I enjoyed thoroughly all the insights. You want to add something?
Me? No, thank you for listening, and all the best to you.
Absolutely. Jakub, thanks again. However, Engagers and Jakub, as you know, at least for now and for today, it is time to say that it's game over.
Hey Engagers, and thank you for listening to the Professor Game podcast. And since you're interested in this world of creating motivation, engagement, loyalty using game-inspired solutions, how about you join us on our free online community at Professor Game on School. You can find the link right below in the description, but the main thing is to click there, join us. It's a platform called School. It's for free, and you'll find plenty of resources there. We'll be up to date with everything that we're doing, any opportunities that we might have for you. And of course, before you go on to your next mission, before you click continue, please remember to subscribe using your favorite podcast app and listen to the next episode of Professor Game. See you there.